Welcome to True Wellness with Dr. D, the podcast where we explore what it takes to live with vitality, balance, and purpose. I am Dr. D, and each week I'll bring you powerful tools, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you thrive in every area of your life. From health and wellness to mindset and navigating life's challenges, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of true well-being. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. What if right now you had no problems? Everything was absolutely golden. That, folks, is where we are going today. Today, I am joined by Elmari Van Wyk, and she is one of the most special people to me in my life. She is my buddy. We meet on a regular basis, and she is so gifted when it comes to helping people unearth those things that hold them back from not having everything perfect in the moment, right? So Elmari is, she comes from this background and history where, life may not have looked perfect in the given moment. She had a business that went through some tough times and failures as a result of 9/11. She had some subsequent business failures, relationship issues, all of these things that brought her to a place. Remember, there's a gift in all the drama. There's always a gift, you guys, but it brought her to this place of having a profound relationship with herself and challenged her belief systems. And these experiences, they hurtled her onto the pathway of finding mentors and trainers that have really set her on the journey in a world of emotional healing and transformation so that now she can live a life of joy. And Elmari, she is a life coach, a transformational coach, and she teaches her clients these techniques that powerfully changed her life. And you guys, in her spare time, she loves being outdoors. She's got a husband, children in college. And so she's got lots of things to come up, but you will find her haunting the coffee shops with her friends and embracing every moment of now. Elmari, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Danielle. I think that there's going to be a lot of interesting conversation around this topic today.
I know I have no idea where we're going to go or how this conversation is going to lead, but I know our conversations are always pretty awesome. So I'm excited. So Elmari, let's just dive right in. You have coined the phrase, the golden moment of now. What does that mean?
So the golden moment of now is a time when you're just still, a moment when you recognize that here and now in this moment, I'm okay. Here and now in this moment, everything's okay. And if you can step in that moment into appreciating what is working, there's an immediate shift in your emotions where you're just like, it just feels like somebody's just given you a little neck massage and you can just like, And it's simply just recognizing that most of the time our minds are either in the past or in the future. And if we allow ourselves to just be in this moment, right here, right now, it changes everything. So I was introduced to this concept by Eckhart Tolle, his magnificent work of the power of now. I recommend that to everyone and listen to it and really understand that as especially on the Audible, he really takes you into that space of now.
Yes.
And when I was able to really experience that, it changed everything for me. Even at the toughest time of my life, I was able to find gratitude and appreciation in the moment because everything my mind had made up as being dangerous and going to get me and frightening and overwhelming was really not right now. It was maybe in 10 minutes, maybe tomorrow, maybe never, but it felt like it was now. until I realized that I had the ability to just change how I feel right now. And that changes the game. Absolutely.
I love that. I'm getting this visual because you're right. We spend so much time in the past, in the future, and like I'm just kind of seeing myself standing in a space in like almost like a swarm of bees flowing all around me. It's all the little chatter of what I did or didn't do, or what I need to do, or what somebody said, or what I said, or what did I forget, or what has to be done, and like all these little bees just kind of swarming all around me. And then when you realize like it's just now, it's like those little bees in my little analogy here, they just kind of drop to the floor, and all of a sudden everything is perfect. Everything is quiet. And now there are no problems in that moment. And then you can like breathe.
Well, you just said the magic word, breathe.
Yes.
Being able to drop into appreciation helps a lot with a deep breath. Because when we give our body a deep breath, if we give ourselves a deep breath, it completely revitalizes how we feel. Think about it. We take breathing, we take it as normal, like eating and drinking water. But how many of us really appreciate a deep breath?
Yes.
I mean, how often do we remember just to, just in this moment? And taking a deep breath really grounds you in the moment, because
Yes.
you can't take a breath yesterday and you can't take it in the next moment. You can only take a breath right now. And so when you take that breath, take a moment and feel what that feels like. Feels what it feels like to inhale deeply and to exhale, just let go. Say, oh, I'm breathing. Just feel how wonderful that one single breath felt.
Yes. Yeah, we spend most of our time either holding our breath, right, or doing those little tiny shallow breaths that contribute to that, anxiety that I think is so prevalent in our space today.
Yeah, and the anxiety is always about something in the future, right? So the definition of anxiety is really a perception of the future that I'm feeling now. So it's literally a made up thing, a story that my brain is telling me about something that's going to happen, may happen, possibly will happen. Oh no, it's happening, yet nothing is happening right now.
Yes.
The problem is our brain doesn't seem to know the difference between future, past, or present. It
Yeah.
is now, right? Which is great because that's when we can control it, only now. So the idea is to train our brains to recognize that, yes, what I'm feeling anxiety about can or may or never will come to pass. And we just have to learn to differentiate about between, okay, that's in the future and this is now. So our brains are really wired to alert us about potential danger. And that's what
Yes.
anxiety tends to show up as. It's like, hey, you got to pay attention, something bad's going to happen. And to get our attention, it just fills our body with all these chemicals and hormones that we interpret as feelings and anxiety. The problem again is that this is not real now, but it feels like it is. So, okay, we say thank you to our brains. Okay, thank you. Thanks for warning me. I get it. What are you trying to tell me? And it helps if you do a little exercise and have some fun with it. Take this thing that seems to be swinging around your brain and taking over all your thoughts and capture it in a golden ball or any color ball that you can think of. Put it in front of you and say, hello, okay, you're a thing. What is it that you're trying to tell me? Why are you driving me nuts? And now immediately you are in this present moment because you're taking what's swirling around your mind and it feels like it's completely taking your brain over and you're giving it some way to be. And then you're like, hello, okay, What are you? What are you trying to tell me? What's going on? And the more distance you put between this personification of this fear, the easier it is for you to get information from it. And the beauty of doing this exercise is it brings you into the present moment and it gives you control over your brain again.
I love that. Yeah, because I mean, otherwise it's just this thing, and then we're confused, I think, that we think this thing that's swirling around is really us, right? And yet it's just this thought, like you said, out in the future. So taking it and putting it in a little ball in your mind's eye and then having a conversation with it. You get to unlock things you can't otherwise see while it's just kind of running around out of control in your mind. Let's take a
Yeah.
look on that thought.
Well, another way that people do this is journaling, right? This
Yes.
is why journaling is so popular. It gives all these thoughts place to be. It gives them somewhere to reside in the physical world. So another way of taking those thoughts, all those fears, and giving them a place to be is just write them down. And then write down, what does this mean for me? Why is this impacting me? What can I do about it, if anything? Because think about it, any problem we have, we can only take the next step now. We
Yes.
can't take the 100 steps that our brain is telling us we need to take now. We can only take one step, and maybe we can't do it this moment, but at least if we clarify what that next step is and then choose when is the most appropriate moment for that next step. And most of the time, it isn't now. And the more we make peace with, okay, it isn't now, the more freedom we actually have to keep our brain online and be able to make good decisions.
That makes so much sense. It's funny, my brain is like it can sometimes be a runaway train. Like I'm already 5,000 steps into the future when I haven't even taken the first step yet. And the irony is, at least this is what I find in my life, is sometimes when you're 5,000 steps into the future, like somewhere around like step number 2 or number 3, like it goes in a totally different direction than where that number 5,000 ends up. So it's almost like we perpetuate this state of I'm going to call it insanity, right? Because it's like it is insane.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no other description for it because we're driving ourselves nuts. There's a reason we have that we have that saying. He's driving me nuts. Well, we're doing a really good job of driving ourselves nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Well, I mean, listen, all joking aside, though, sometimes when we are stuck in that moment, it becomes really, really real, right?
Yeah.
How do you help your clients then begin to start to see, like, hey, I think you're, on that runaway train. How can we guide our listeners to then be able to take some power and control over that train, hit the brakes, so to speak?
Well, one of the things when I'm in session, I have my clients do is just sit and breathe. I
Yeah.
actually guide them to breathe really slowly.
Mm,
And we just sit and breathe until I can see them relaxing. So
mm,
we just breathe. And the one thing you have to understand when you're by yourself and you don't have any guidance, remember there's no rush. One of my favorite sayings is from Lily Tomlin. She says, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat.
yes.
So yes, we can run the rat race. Okay. I don't know about you, but I'm not too keen about staying in that environment. And the best way to get out of the rat race is to stop racing.
Yes.
Stop identifying with the race at all.
Mm,
What I mean with that is this race we have that takes us out of the moment is just how we see the world through our own eyes, our own perceptions, and our own history.
yes.
Everything we experience is created by the way we see the world. And if you guys can just hang with me a bit around this topic, when I say that, I mean literally that everything that we experience comes through the lens of our past experiences, our past perceptions, and our assumptions we make about a situation. And most of the time, those assumptions are incorrect, especially if they're around other people. Because
Mm.
we create this perception about somebody, we have this version of them in our brain and conversations with them that they never participate in.
Yes.
And we think it's real. And we never even ask them the questions that we argue with them about in our brain.
Yes.
And only way you can really get to being in this golden moment is if you recognize how you're playing in this in your mind. You're living in a different world than everybody else. But that means once you recognize that, you have control, you can stop that process. You can say, okay, enough. What am I making up? What am I presuming? This anxiety is based on a whole boatload of presumptions. Like you said, I mean, our brains are already creating these scenarios of what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And that's like 1,000 steps from now. But
Right.
we rarely get past the third step before the whole scenario changes.
Yes. Yeah. It's like we need to start shooting holes into what we think is actually real, because that reality may not be reality. It's just it's kind of like walking around with sunglasses. You walk around with sunglasses for a while, you walk inside your house and you don't even realize that you have the sunglasses on. And then you take them off and you're like, oh my gosh, everything looks so different. And so we've got these filters that we're walking around with all the time.
Yeah. And the beauty of being able to recognize when you're walking around with a filter, the only way to recognize that is if you're in the present moment. You
Yeah.
have to come back into your body. And that reminds me of one of my favorite podcast, or my favorite TED video ever was by Dr. Ken Robinson, and it's called How Schools Kill Creativity.
Mm.
And he talks about college professors, specifically in this example, how they generally just use their bodies as transportation for their heads, right? And I resonated with that so well, because that was what I was doing most of my life. I'm like, okay, body, get me there. It's like, and the body is the very thing that gives you all the sensory information to tell you, hey, you're not in the present moment. Because if you live in your head all the time, you're living in a dream world. You're living in an illusion. You got to be in the present moment in your body, because your body uses emotions to communicate what's really going on in your conscious mind, which we often interpret as anxiety, right? And it's just a message. It's like, I'm giving you this anxiety so that you will pay attention to me. And this attention is your brain saying, hey, there's something I want you to look at. Our bodies, when we stop using our heads, using our bodies as transportation for our heads, then we suddenly again in the present moment. Then we're congruent. And the more we connect with our bodies, I mean, how powerful that is,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And still, I walk around some of the time, or a lot of the time, let's be real, right? Still, I walk around and have to catch myself and remember I'm not just a head. I got to get back into my body and really feel, right?
That's right.
Really feel. But the irony, Elmari, is that of course it's our thoughts that then create emotions that do cascade through our body. And so we've got to it's the it's the dance between the two that's so vital.
Yeah. It's also interesting though, even though we have thoughts about something, we don't always know what the anxiety is linked to specifically,
Yeah.
right? We'll have this nebulous feeling of a discomfort. And even though we feel great about a certain project, there's a part of us that's incongruent with it. And that's where it's like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. And that's where, again, get present, breathe, pay attention to those signals,
Right.
because those signals will actually help you get to your outcome much quicker if you pay attention to them and learn what you can learn from. What is this sensation telling me now? And I know that sounds kind of strange, but I challenge everybody to try it.
Yes.
Just sit for a moment when you're feeling kind of off and be curious about it. Hey, I'm doing great. This is a fantastic day. Why am I feeling like
That little
this
poke.
is something's off, right?
Yeah.
Right? Every time we do that, we learn, we get to know ourselves better. We learn to become more congruent in our mind, in our body, in our spirit.
Yes.
And the more we can do this for ourselves, the more we are able to give somebody else space to have their own journey.
Absolutely.
Because the next most beautiful part of being just in the moment is how you can show up for somebody else. So if you're in a conversation with somebody else, what do most of us do? We have the conversation, we're already thinking about how we want to answer the question that we asked the other person.
Right.
or we just ask them a question so that we can get to talk again.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we're not even present in the conversation. We're
No.
not even in that golden moment of now.
Well, the power of just being in the moment, not needing to get anything from anyone in a conversation, which sounds strange because you'd say, well, what's the point then, right? Well, I challenge you, go into a conversation with no outcome. Sit there and be with that person. And as you do that, notice how you view them. Notice how your past perceptions of them are actually trying to influence the way you communicate. But if you're able to just sit there and listen. Now, some people get really freaked out if you make too much eye contact. So, and if you feel uncomfortable with eye contact, just stare at the middle of their forehead. They don't know the difference. But some people that's where when you're present, you get to know, you can learn how to communicate with that specific person. For example, some people would rather sit next to you and talk, right? Other people like talking over the phone because for them, when somebody's in their space, it takes them out of their groove, takes them they don't feel comfortable, they don't feel safe.
Sure.
But the only way you can sense these kind of things is when you are so completely present with that person that you can really get information from them. I mean, so many people, because they don't take a moment to truly be in the moment, they just showing up how they've always showed up, and then they're confused about why they have the conflict they have in certain of their relationships.
Right.
And that's just simply because, well, firstly, because we walk into the conversation expecting conflict. Secondly, if you're just able to stay in the moment, you can notice how that other person is actually doing. And you can even notice, is this the best time to have a conversation with them? And
Right.
sometimes it's not.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, I mean, I know your company is Life Directions, and what does that mean? How do we engage with life directions? Like, I know maybe a lot of our listeners might be in places in their life where they're in transitions. There are different things that are going on in their life, and they might feel a little unsteady.
Mm. So we are a coaching company and we help people, whatever the client needs, we meet them where we're at. But one of the things that we really have been focusing on is communication and leadership.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I'm not just talking about people who run companies, I'm talking about people who lead families, people who are going through every day in an environment where other people need them to show up as the best version of them.
Yes.
And so, how we work with people is It's a simple conversation, a strategy call. Let's sit together and see where you're at. Let's see how we can help guide you to who you really are. Who are you when you're just the best version of you without trying to be? Where
What
you can just be in the moment with yourself with complete joy.
What are some ways that our listeners can start to think about what does that mean for them in their life? Like what's the inquiry they should begin to engage in to find that pathway of joy? Right? Because we started off, we talked about, well, what if everything right now is perfect and you have no problem? So how do we get to that place, right?
Well, the very first step is to accept everything exactly as it is.
Mm, what you resist persists.
It sounds counterproductive and it sounds like you're letting yourself and other people off the hook. But I'm going to ask you, what's the point of bashing yourself and other people over the head,
Mm,
metaphorically? What
yeah.
is the point? What are you trying to accomplish with that?
Yes.
There's a saying that I'm gonna, which is very common. You can either be happy or you can be right.
Yes.
Now, in this specific um, topic for conversation, it's very, very true. So, being happy is not sometime in the future when you've accomplished something. You
Mm,
can ask any successful, truly successful person if when they accomplished this goal, how long were they happy? They were maybe exhilarated and excited. But happiness is not based on a future outcome. It's based on how do I experience my now? How can I accept what is and just be okay with that? That doesn't mean nothing's going to change. But I will tell you a secret. The
I like
only way anything can change is if you're completely okay with everything exactly as it is now.
it. Mm,
Because the more, as you said, what you resist persist, right? The more you fight it, the more your focus goes there and all your energy goes there. And that's what you're going to create more of. It's
yeah.
completely counterproductive to try and solve a problem from seeing the problem. There's no solution in a problem. So
There's no solution in a problem. You've got
that's
to get
right.
inside the problem to find the solution.
Exactly. The only way there's a solution, though, is again putting some space between you and the problem. And the way you
Mhm.
do that is just saying, okay, I accept this. It is what it is. And now what?
Yes.
Right? In this moment, I accept everything that's happened. And now the next step is, okay, I'm going to just be with us for a moment. I'm going to just allow myself to take some deep breaths and then think, and then in that moment, in that golden moment of complete acceptance, you will see possibilities start coming up.
Yeah.
The more you practice just being in the moment and accepting, and then you start also being able to change what things mean for you because you're actually in the moment. You see things truly. You can, in the moment, you can say, hey, hang on, that's an assumption I'm making. Is
Right.
that true?
Right.
And what do I want instead? But you can only make those decisions or have those aha moments in the moment.
It's like that's where the magic is, right?
Yeah.
That's where the magic truly lies.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of the reasons why meditation too is so powerful is because you're not anywhere else but just right in that present moment at that time. I mean, I know that you've been through a lot of different scenarios in your own life. Can you share with us a little bit about how you helped yourself move through these spaces using some of these techniques that we've talked about?
Well, as I said, when at a time when my life was really rough, I mean, a lot of the things I believed to be solid and true in my life were just ripped away.
Mm,
And I was at a unique junction in my life where I had to really find out what all this means. But
right.
it really was a time where my life on the outside, just everything had fallen apart. And the only way that I could find my feet under me was just to be in the moment. And I did something then that I still do today when I'm really charged up, is I have a practice where I'm focusing on the chair I'm sitting in, right? I think only about the chair I'm sitting in. And then I think about, hey, hang on, this is actually quite a comfortable chair. And then I think about, hey, somebody designed this chair
Yes.
somewhere. Somebody actually, this is somebody's brainchild, this chair. I mean, it works. You can actually sit on it without it collapsing, right? I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I could never do that. And so there's somebody who knew how to design this chair. Somebody built it. Yes, maybe it was in a factory, but still there was a prototype. Somebody tested this. This design of this chair went through a lot of hours to come to be even created for the first time. And
It's a
then I
lot.
think of all the people that built this chair, or all the hands that touched it.
Yes.
All even in a factory, people are working on the machines. I mean, so many hands worked on this chair, packing it, shipping it, to get this chair under my butt. I mean, man, that is incredible. So
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
exactly. So if you ever feel unsupported, think of all the people that worked on your freaking chair.
I love
And
that. It's so simple.
exactly. And that is the most effective way I ever found to experience the moment, experience gratitude, and be able to recognize that I'm a part of a whole. Everything I touch was put there through somebody else's effort in the most case. I'm never alone. I'm supported by all these unseen people, all the effort they put in so that I can have everything around me. And there's so much that everybody gives to everyone else thanklessly. And so in that moment, I say thank you to everyone. And then I have a new appreciation for whatever I'm struggling with, because then I'm a completely different state. I'm in a state of gratitude. And
Yeah.
then I can say, okay, I have my own say. One of the things I say to myself all the time is everything is always working out for me.
Yes.
And even though it feels uncomfortable, there's always a lesson in the uncomfortable.
Yes.
What is it that I have to understand about the situation, learn from the situation, so that I can just let it go, so that I can just accept it. And
Mm-hmm.
once I accept it, it's magical how possibilities just come, and how, even though the situation hasn't changed, my perspective of it has completely.
Yeah. Everything is a gift.
That's
Everything is a
right.
gift, right? And when we start to look at the world in that way, like every problem, every breakdown, every negative emotion, like what if it was a gift? It transforms, right? It transforms. It's like you're saying, like, think about the chair, something as simple and mundane as the chair, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, and there are millions of those things around us. I mean, look at the world that we've created. If all this is possible, I'm just in my room, there's so many things like this chair. What, I mean, how, then I'm capable of anything, because there's so much that everyone before me has created. How do I add value? Not how do I try and avoid something.
Mm,
No, how do I add value? How do I
right.
bring my piece into this beautiful world?
Yeah. And recognizing too, I think, Elmari, that our piece matters, right? I think
Yeah.
sometimes we get caught up, especially in this social media world and all these other things. And it's like, well, wait a second. We all matter. We're all here for a purpose. We're all here for a reason. We all have value, no matter what it is that looks like, you know?
That's right. That's right. When I talk to my clients, a lot of clients struggle with this idea of having value.
Yes.
And I know it's a little off topic, but one of the things that I always tell them is, if you look at a child, a baby, little one, 2 or 3 years old, especially if it's a family member or it's just this cute little baby. You look at this child. None of us ever look at that child and think, you're not worth anything. We see how worthy that child is of everything that life and love and happiness can offer to them, right? This
Yeah.
child is valuable and worthwhile and perfect in every way, even though they're chubby, right? We
Yes.
don't want a thin child, but look at us today. Hey, I'm chubby, I'm bad.
That's what a lot of people do today. I mean, gosh, so many of my female clients who are carrying that excess weight, that's the mindset. It's something we work through in our Body Beautiful program because it's a big deal. But
Yeah, and so what I want to add to that is if you, when you were that baby, was worth everything, was 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 deserved everything,
yeah,
why, now that you've aged, that suddenly not true anymore?
so powerful. That's so powerful right there. Yeah. Because it's the truth, isn't it? It's the truth before it got clouded with all those thoughts and beliefs and things that we picked up along the way, all the baggage. I'm thinking about, I know I've shared with you, but I'll share with my audience. So my uncle recently passed away, and my uncle he wasn't the stellar society member by any stretch of the imagination. He had a wonderful heart, but he probably had some undiagnosed mental illness, spent his life in and out of jail with drug addiction, and he had a little chip on his shoulder. He was stubborn, was doing things his way, said whatever he wanted, whether it was appropriate or not appropriate. And it's just who he was. And at his funeral service, uh, my family lives in many different places, but all of our family came together. And he lived, with all of my family being away, he was really the only one left in New York. And so a lot of the people who were present were the people in his community. And I just sat there as these people told stories about this man who I would completely consider imperfect, right? Like he'd done stuff that I would never even fathom doing or say stuff or whatever, but they all had this intense, amazing love and respect for him. And even with all of his flaws, they'd make a comment, like Eddie would come over and he'd ask for $5. And he said, but he always returned it. The next time he got his check, he always returned it, or he'd walk into their house and do whatever he wanted and say what he wanted. But they loved him for all of those imperfections. And I know for me, as I sat there that night, it was like, wow, like, doesn't this just put a different perspective? Because I speak for myself, I put so much weight on my shoulders about having to do things a certain way, be a certain way. And I recognize then, like, it's not like, now, like, you could make a difference, be an important person in people's lives, and just share the love by just being who you are, perfect or not, in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I guess who defines what perfect is?
Well, that grace we can, again, only give to ourselves in the moment. When we're
Yeah.
still, when we can breathe,
Yeah.
we can say, hey, I'm doing the best I can because you are and I am. If
Yes,
we knew differently, we'd do differently, right?
exactly. Yeah. I always tell everybody you got to start with wherever you are and just put your foot forward in whatever that next direction is. We're all in different places on all the different paths that we are in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Elmari, I always ask all of our guests to give us 3 actionable items that our listeners can begin to take on in their life to start to, move their life in a more positive direction to help them reach their goals. What are those 3 things that you would say are most important to begin to actually move that dial?
Well, For me, the most important thing is just to take time out, even if it's 5 minutes a day,
Mm,
just to be. If you want to journal, do that. But take some time, and again, it can be 5 minutes where you just sit down and breathe. Now,
yeah.
I'm a great fan of meditation. We spoke about it earlier. If you can give yourself the time just to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say hello to yourself. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but say hello to your body. Say, hey, okay, I'm here and now. I'm not going anywhere for the next 5 minutes. And just notice how that one action changes your whole life. And it maybe sounds a little dramatic, but it truly can make a huge difference.
Yes.
Just take 5 minutes, close your eyes, and just focus on your breath. And another thing is, when you get all wound up, give yourself space
Mm,
and sit down, get away from the argument, get away from the problem, give yourself just a few minutes, sit down and find something to appreciate. Find a way to just give yourself that deep breath and just be. Feel the floor under your feet. Feel the chair underneath your seat.
yes.
Just experience what it's like to be in your body, because the moment you drop into your body, you're out of your head. And the head is where you have most of your problems, right?
Yes, exactly.
So when you're out of your head, out of your mind, oh, wow, that sounds interesting. Get out of your mind
A lot of our minds. Yeah, that happens.
and get in your body. That releases so much tension. Just breathe, just move your shoulders, just drop into your body for a few moments. And you'll find you can actually think a lot more clearly.
Mm,
Maybe one of the things is you haven't been hydrating. Drink water,
yeah,
breathe. Maybe you haven't eaten, right?
yeah.
Just notice what you notice about your body and help yourself become more centered just for 5 minutes. So it'll take a load off. You know, that load that you're carrying is actually in the future. It's not now. It doesn't exist right now. It's a perception in your mind. Right here, right now, everything's fine.
Mm,
And the third thing I would recommend somebody to do is to just remember, all of us are trying the best we can. So show some compassion to everybody else we're sharing this planet to those people that aggravate you. Remember, they're also living in their heads. They're not taking a moment to breathe.
yes.
And again, if we are all just living in our heads, thinking our own thoughts, and then come together without taking a moment to just connect to now, I mean, we're talking past each other. There's no conversation if we're not present. No real conversation. So
It's
those are my three.
I love those. Absolutely love them. Thank you, Elmari, so much for being here with us, for sharing your wisdom and your guidance. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
They can find me at lifedirections.com. And I am on Facebook as Elmari Van Wyk. There's not too many of us. I'm located in Houston, so that should be fairly easy. I have a professional page that you can subscribe to or follow if you wish. Say hi to me. And yeah, those are the main places that you can find me right now.
I love it. Thank you again for being here with us today. And thank you to all our listeners. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. This is Dr. D, reminding you to tune into your body, reconnect with what matters, and embrace the journey to true wellness. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to redefine their health. Let's keep redefining wellness and empowering change together. See you next Thursday for the next episode drop.